Swami Maharaj ki jai. Srila Vishnu Srila Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Vishnu Paramahansa Srila Gaurkishora Swami Maharaj ki jai. Srila Vishnu Satchidananda Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Srila Vishnu Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Gauri Vedanta Chaji Srila Bhakti Bhushan Guru ki jai. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur ki jai. Srila Narottam Shri Vaishnava ki jai. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Srila Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Srila Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Srila Damodar Roy Yogananda Shri Gopal Srila Vindi ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Namse Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Gautama Radha Shiva Sri Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Sri Aditi Mayapur Shrimati Prajana Ji Kalaji Pachiti Janaji Madhukinaji Prajana Dhamika Shrimati Dham ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Govindadan Varasarana Kashi Rajnanda ki jai. Shri Shalakun Radha Kumara Ganga Tasavati Devi ki jai. Yogamaya Purnamasi ki jai. Gopishwar Mahadev ki jai. Raghunath Baladev Subhaji Siddhasan Shakriti ki jai. Shri Purushottam Chetra ki jai. Shinga Bhagavan ki jai. Bhakti Prabha Shri Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. Bhantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Sanagata Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Vitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Kuroti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Trishe Namaha Nityanandam Namastubhyam Premananda Pradayane Kalau Kalmashanashaya Janavapataye Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Bhaktya Vihina Aparadha Lakshai Kshiptascha Kamadi Taranga Madhye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanarabindam Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable, beloved Diksha and Siksha Gurudevs. Nityalila Pravishtom Vishnupad Paramahansa Ashtatara Sata Sri Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Nityalila Pravishtom Vishnupad Paramahansa Ashtatara Sata Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj and Nityalila Pravishtom Vishnupad Paramahansa Astatara Sata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. I'm offering my Dandavat pranams at the lotus feet of all of my Shri Rupa Luga Guru Varga. And I'm offering my Dandavat pranams to all the Vaishnavas and all the Vaishnavis. Yesterday, after our class, I continued to read the Katha that was from Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Maharaj about Bhakti Hridoy Ban Maharaj. And I had read it kind of recently because I think maybe his disappearance day was recently.
This was in the last couple of months.
Yeah, and but there was this beautiful description, which I actually wanted to read, but it's describing when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wanted to do this diorama exhibition. They had a certain name for that, and he wanted to do it in Kurukshetra. So he wrote some letter to Bhakti Hridoy Ban Maharaj saying to him that we will have some important or very vital seva to do to the lotus feet of Srimati Radhika. That's all he said. And then it was decided that they would do this exhibition at Kurukshetra. And they had to design the whole exhibition, which particular scenes of the whole Leela, of the whole pastime, would be produced with the diorama each exhibition, right? And that list is so sweet. I don't know if you've heard it or remember it. I think I might have it here. Let's see. Yeah, I have it. So just to tantalize, okay, here it is. Every solar eclipse, hundreds of thousands of people journey to Kurukshetra. And they journey there to ritualistically take bath in Brahma Sarovara. But the deep import of this ritual remains unknown to the vast majority of these pilgrims. Once, some time before such a solar eclipse, Srila Prabhupada wrote a letter to Srila Van Goswami Maharaj in which he mentioned, Srimati Radhika will soon go to meet with Krishna in Kurukshetra, and so we will have some service to perform there as well. That's what he told. This is Van Maharaj, Bhakti Hridaya Van Maharaj, because yesterday was his appearance day. Yeah, and I'm just reading one little section, because he was the person that executed the desire of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur to do all these different diorama exhibitions.
Okay.
Yeah, he designed them and everything. He took care of everything, start to finish. And Srila Prabhupada is very pleased. So I was just saying that before we begin our reading of Nectar Devotion, I wanted to read this that I read last night after our class. And I was thinking, oh, the devotees would like to hear this. Because this is a description of each diorama exhibition of the whole Leela, right? In the order in which it took place. So he wrote this message, which was very short and very cryptic, to Van Maharaj. Srimati Radhika will soon go to meet with Krishna in Kurukshetra, and so we have some service to perform there as well. You know, we can bring those two chairs in my room. Or, yeah.
I'll go check on
Okay. Yes, so she'll soon go because solar eclipse, right? So soon, Srimati Radhika will go to meet with Krishna in Kurukshetra. And so we have some service to perform there as well. Although the message was short and cryptic, Srila Maharaj understood that his Sri Guru Pada Padma wanted him to manifest to the whole world a confidential pastime which previously appeared in the heart of Srila Rupa Goswami by the divine mercy of Sriman Mahaprabhu. So to this end, during a month-long local fair in Kurukshetra, Srila Van Goswami Maharaj expertly created an exhibition with dioramas that beautifully depicted the following. So, yeah, this is the list. And as I'm reading this, you can imagine how this is being depicted in the diorama. First diorama, Nanda Baba meeting with all the senior Vrajvasis before a solar eclipse, right? So first they had to meet, they had to discuss, yes, we will go there to Kurukshetra. Next one, the Vrajvasis are preparing to depart for Kurukshetra. So you can imagine all the bullock carts, all for the whole journey, you know. Then, the next one is the deep, dark forests they encountered on their journey, being illuminated by the natural radiance of Sri Radha's body, which protected them against the attack of wild animals. I thought you'd like that one. The Brajvasis are journeying, and Srimati Radhika's bodily effulgence is the headlight, and protecting them against wild animals. God. Next one, the Brajvasis meeting with the Dwarkavasis. So they've arrived. Next one, Nanda Baba and Mother Yashoda's tearful reunion with Sri Krishna, who burrowed himself so deeply into Yashoda's lap that it appeared as if he were trying to merge into her. Next one. Everyone's bathing in the Brahma Sarovara on the day of the solar eclipse. Then, the Queens of Dwarka's proposal to donate to Narada Muni Krishna's weight in a precious substance during the solar eclipse. And Narada Muni's condition that he will take Krishna away with him should they be unable to match Krishna's weight. Next one is the Queens of Dwarka's prideful acceptance of Narada Muni's proposal, followed by their inability to give him a sufficient amount of gold. Next diorama, their weeping at the thought of Narada taking Krishna away. Next one, the advice of Mother Rohini to bring all the gopis headed by Sri Radha. Next one, Sri Radha replacing all the queen's gold with a single tulsi leaf on which she had written the name Krishna. Then the next exhibition, that tulsi leaf outweighing Sri Krishna, thus establishing that Krishna Nam and Sri Krishna himself are non-different. And in parentheses, it was the weight of the tulsi leaf that tipped the scale. I never heard that before. Then, Sri Krishna meeting with the gopis in a secluded place on the pretext of what? There had to be some pretext because he's meeting in a secluded place with the gopis. So what was the pretext that was created?
Sorry.
Is this a Kurchak tomorrow?
Yeah. On the pretext of falling ill. And their subsequent conversation. Next one, Sri Radha complaining to Sri Krishna and his attempt to pacify her. Imagine. Then the next one is the gopis demonstrating the insignificance of opulence, Aishwarya, in the face of sweetness, Madhurya. I can't quite envision exactly how that would be depicted in the diorama. Then the next one, the weeping of Sri Radha and Sri Krishna. Next one, the gopis pulling Krishna in his chariot. Where? Back to Vrindavan. And then Srimad Mahaprabhu manifesting the mood of Sri Radha while dancing in front of Jagannath's chariot and ecstatically reciting a verse from a seemingly mundane poem. Yat komara hara sa eva hivaras ta eva chaitra kshapas. That verse. And then Srila Rupa Goswami mentally composing a parallel verse that revealed the mood and the intended meaning of Srimad Mahaprabhu's poetic recitation. And that verse is Priya Soyam Krishna Sahachari Kurukshetra Militas. I'll read the translation of these two verses. The first one, he who has stolen away my youth is now my husband. These are the same moonlit nights in the month of Chaitra, when we first met in our youth. The same breezes from the Kadamba forest are blowing the same light, sweet fragrance from the blossoming malati flowers. In our intimate relationship, I am also the same lover. Nonetheless, my heart is longing for the amorous, love-laden play of our first meeting at the foot of the Vetasi tree on the bank of the river Reva. So that's the first verse Mahaprabhu is singing again and again in front of Jagannath's cart. Yeah. Chair, take chair. If necessary, we can bring from my room those other two chairs. So, nobody could understand why Mahaprabhu was singing this apparently mundane poetic verse. No one could understand. Out of all the people that are hearing him, lakhs and lakhs of people, but no one could understand.
One person can.
Yeah, except for two people.
Rupa Goswami and Srila.
Yes, that's right. So as Rupa Goswami was hearing Mahaprabhu reciting that verse, in his mind, this parallel verse suddenly manifested, right? And there...
He composed himself.
Yeah, he composed it. But the idea, the understanding of it, the seed of it, it all manifested in his heart when he heard Mahaprabhu singing that.
Yeah.
Right? And what was the actual mood? Because in the first verse, it's a young girl talking about her memories of meeting in this particular place, in this beautiful forest area, in the springtime season, and at that time, I'm the same person and you are the same person that I met, now you're my husband. But I remember that time of our meeting, and I so much long for that time again. So that longing is the mood of that mundane verse. So then he reveals, Rupa Goswami reveals, I'll just read the verse. Priyaso yam Krishna sahachari kurukshetra militas tataham saradha tad idam ubayo sangama sukam tatapyanta kelan madhura murali panchama jushe manome kalindi pulina vipinaya sprihayati. My dear friend, in this Kurukshetra is that very same Sri Krishna who had secretly engaged in amorous pastimes with me in Vrindavan. So Srimati Radhika is remembering and speaking. This is her mood. And what Mahaprabhu is tasting that mood of Srimati Radhika in the Rath Yatra. So, I am also the same Radha, and the happiness of our meeting is still the same. But nonetheless, my heart is yearning for that very forest of Vrindavan, situated on the banks of the Yamuna, where Sri Krishna used to continuously engage in pastimes and play the fifth note of his charming Murali flute. So after this was depicted in the diorama, then that next diorama exhibition is showing Srila Rupa Goswami writing this verse on a palm leaf and then keeping it in the thatched roof of his bhajan kutir. And then finally, the last one is Srimad Mahaprabhu's ecstasy upon finding and reading that verse, and his admittance that Rupa Goswami was able to understand his heart because he had previously blessed him in Prayag. So that whole group of dioramas. Now, Srila Bhakti Hriday Ban Maharaj he placed, next to each diorama, he placed a brief description, and he also posted a devotee to further explain its depicted pastime. One devotee per exhibition. So like thousands of people were coming and seeing this, and he's got a description there, and then the devotees are also explaining it.
No recording, live
Yeah.
person.
No recording. Yes. So Srila Prabhupada was highly pleased by this arrangement. All those who attended the exhibition were endlessly grateful to have learned the real purpose of visiting Kurukshetra during a solar eclipse. You know, what a wonderful seva, what wonderful preaching, huh? Yeah. So Prabhupada, our Prabhupada used to tell us about those exhibitions, right? He shared that.
Created the diorama.
And exactly, and then he sent the artists to India to study and learn how to make those clay kind of figures, you know.
That was Prabhupada's inspiration, this diorama? Is that?
Yeah, well,
Yes.
well, I
This
mean,
was the one and only
his
diorama?
Guru
Or there was others?
no, they did these diorama exhibitions. Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati did those here and there. There's like a whole list of places where they did those over a period of a few years. You
And
know?
even would advertise, spend money on advertising, send out letters and things.
So
Yeah.
Prabhupada
Thousands
saw
of
all
people.
this and then he just did the same and...
Well, yeah, I mean, he was inspired by what his own Guru Maharaj did, and then with Western technology, you know, he upgraded that to computer animated, right?
Right.
Like the thing in LA, and they had a fantastic one in Detroit.
That was the main one, wasn't it? Yeah.
I don't know if it was the main one, probably it
It
was.
was a big one.
Yeah, because it was more elaborate. I saw it actually many years ago. But they had they had like a big screen room where you come in. It's like a movie theater, so all the people that come in sit down, and then they see this incredible presentation, and then they begin to do the tour. And there's a tour guide, and some of the figures were moving a little bit, you know.
Wow.
Like that. Yeah, even back then, computerized. Yeah. And there was a plan. I can't quite remember who had proposed this plan, but they wanted to make one in Washington, D.C., like a big one at some point. I forget who that was. Maybe it was Rupa Manohar, I think. He was telling me about that idea. So, just a little bit more and then we'll go to the nectar of devotion. It is exceedingly difficult for a disciple to understand the intentions of Sri Guru, who, being a sincere follower of Shrotavani, the teachings of the Vedas, which are often conveyed indirectly, he relishes parokshavad, or indirect speech. So the parokshavad, we know by all the different pastimes that we've heard in Radha and Krishna's Leelas, how they say one thing, but they're indicating another, like that. So he's saying here, Srila Bharati Maharaj is saying that it's exceedingly difficult for a disciple to understand the intentions of such a guru, of Sri Guru, who, being a sincere follower of Shrotavani, the teachings of the Vedas, which are often conveyed indirectly, he relishes parokshavad, or indirect speech. So only his antaranga disciples are capable of understanding the true intended meanings of his words. Not just an easy thing, huh? The term antaranga, or internal, it actually refers to one who has proven himself to possess such firm faith that Sri Gurudev relies on him completely, and without hesitation he allows him to enter into the innermost chamber of his heart. Because Srila Van Goswami Maharaj was an intimate antaranga associate of Srila Prabhupada, he understood the true meaning of his Gurudev's mysterious instruction. What was that? Some Sri Radha will require some seva. right? And then he was thus able to serve him in a way that fulfilled his heart's desire. So I thought that would be nice for everybody to hear such a sweet pastime.
Which disciple did you say, Maharaj?
This is from the biographical sketch of Srila Bhakti Hriday Ban Maharaj, the one who first went to the West.
Right.
Yeah. And there's a lot more in here explaining about his preaching and how he went to the West. And actually, I didn't even know this, but he went to America twice. And the last time that he went...
I knew someone went to America before. I mentioned that.
But not before Prabhupada.
Huh?
Or wait, no, he did go. The first time was before. And you know when the second time was? 74 and 75.
Chicago, right?
Yeah, he went to Chicago. There was a few different cities that were mentioned that he went to, but we never heard at that time about his visit, you know.
And did Prabhupada, where was Prabhupada when he came to America? Did he must have been aware of it.
I'm sure he's probably aware of it, yeah.
It seems like he would have come to some of our temples.
Well, if he was in America when he visited, you know.
No, if Hriday Ban Maharaj came to America, it seems like he would have come and visited some of the ISKCON temples.
Seems like it. I don't know.
What was his purpose in coming here?
Preaching? Yeah.
He preached.
He even got honorary, like, what is it called? Doctorate or something like that. Honorary from 2 different universities for a couple of the books that he had written, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu in English, you know. But when you read the list of all of his preaching, his accomplishments and everything, and especially prior, you know, when he first joined and how he completely satisfied and surrendered to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who noticed that this person, he has such an uncanny ability to speak what he has heard. He even wrote, Ban Maharaj wrote a whole essay just shortly after he joined the Math. And in that essay, he conveyed everything that he had heard from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and he was so impressed by that. So it's so wonderful that Srila Bhaktivigyan Bharati Maharaj has made this information available to the whole Vaishnava world and into the future. Otherwise, we wouldn't know all these details about these exalted, effulgent personalities. Huh? Okay, so now with our reading, continuing reading the nectar of devotion. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu.
One question about what you were just speaking.
Yeah.
One thing that I'd heard, and maybe you could elaborate, I've always wondered what those points were, but I heard that when he came back from England and Germany, and he was with the devotees, and he said something along the lines of they were asking a lot of questions. And some questions I couldn't answer. Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj was there. And he said, what are the questions?
Yes.
And he gave them, and then he answered them just like that.
Yeah, I told that last night in our class. But then what was the conclusion?
Srila Prabhupada.
Yes.
He said
he stood up in that little, it wasn't like a big assembly. They wanted to kind of privately talk to him.
Right.
And ask him, what was it like? You know, what was your experience? You know? And in the course of him telling that, he mentioned that, you know, the Westerners, sometimes they ask questions that are very difficult to answer. And Srila Maharaj, what are those questions? And then he began to tell each question, and Srila Maharaj answered it, you know. And when there was no more questions left, then our Srila Prabhupada, who was householder at the time, stood up and made a declaration. He said, "Today Europe has been conquered by Asia."
Yes, that's I've heard. That.
Yes.
That's beautiful. Because he answered those questions.
Yeah. Because it was always Europe conquering all the other countries and the colonialism and all of that. That was the history for a couple hundred years, you know. But now, Asia, which of course is the Vedic knowledge. So, we're reading these, the list that Rupa Goswami has introduced in the very beginning of this chapter of the 6 characteristics of pure devotional service, right? And we've read 2 of them so far. What are they? Shubha. Shubhada. Kleshagni means what?
Eradicates all miseries.
Yes, burning to ashes. Klesh, Agni. Agni means fire. So burning to ashes all causes of klesha, sufferings, all sufferings. And the second one, Shubhada.
Giver of all.
Yes. Giving all auspiciousness. And I tell you, the little sections of each one of those 2 that we've read so far are just like so profound. Because Srila Prabhupada is writing this for the first time in the history of the world, introducing the great epic composition of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu to the whole world. But he's wording it in such an amazing way to explain each and every point in such a way that the person can actually grasp, you know. It was very impressive to read certain paragraphs of Srila Prabhupada because he's actually introducing the Krishna consciousness movement and how the Krishna consciousness movement is the ultimate solution to all problems, to all sufferings, on the basis of Rupa Goswami. So, just to recap, I'll just read that little list of 6 items again before we move on. Now there's a verse, Kleshagni Shubhada Moksha Laguta Krit Sudurlava. Yeah, that's the last line, and there's one before that. So these are 6 items, and 2, 2, and 2. The 2 first ones are for the persons who are in the stage of sadhana bhakti. And that can also include raganuga or vaidhi. So those 2 characteristics, which are pure devotional service brings immediate relief from all kinds of material distress. And the second one is pure devotional service is the beginning of all auspiciousness. So that manifests in all the stages, all the way up to the stage of bhav, from shraddha all the way up to bhav. Those 2 qualities will fully manifest. Then in the stage of bhav, the 3rd and 4th, pure devotional service automatically puts one in transcendental pleasure. That's what we're going to read today. And the 4th one, pure devotional service is rarely achieved, sudurlabha. Yeah. Then 5 and 6 in the stage of praying, or just approaching praying. Those in pure devotional service deride even the conception of liberation, moksha. And number 6, pure devotional service is the only means to attract Krishna. Nothing else can attract him except for that. So now we're on the third one, happiness in Krishna consciousness. Srila Rupa Goswami has analyzed the different sources of happiness. He has divided happiness into 3 categories, which are, number 1, happiness derived from material enjoyment. Number 2, happiness derived by identifying oneself with the Supreme Brahman. And number 3, happiness derived from Krishna consciousness. It's very interesting. We've been noticing how Prabhupada uses the term Krishna consciousness or, pure devotional service, even that term, pure devotional service. Shuddha bhakti, uttama bhakti, but he says pure devotional service. But here, the 3rd one is happiness derived from Krishna consciousness. But what level of Krishna consciousness will that be? Very high level. But Happiness is there all throughout. So now he's quoting from the Tantra Shastra, where Lord Shiva speaks to his wife Sati in this way. My dear wife, a person who has surrendered himself at the lotus feet of Govinda and who has thus developed pure Krishna consciousness can be very easily awarded all the perfections desired by the impersonalists. And beyond this, he can enjoy the happiness achieved by the pure devotees. So happiness derived from pure devotional service is the highest. Why? Because it is eternal. It is not temporary. The happiness derived from material perfection or understanding oneself to be Brahman, it is inferior because it is temporary. There is no preventing one's falling down from material happiness. And there is even every chance of falling down from the spiritual happiness derived out of identifying oneself with the impersonal Brahman. It's called Brahmananda. It has been seen that great Mayavadi impersonalist sannyasis, very highly educated and almost realized souls, they may sometimes take to political activities or to social welfare activities. The reason is that they actually do not derive any ultimate transcendental happiness in the impersonal understanding, and therefore they must come down to the material platform and take to such mundane activities, mundane affairs. We've seen that, Ramakrishna Mission. That was the big target for the Gaudiya Math preachers, the Ramakrishna Mission. They're all Mayavadis and so many sannyasis. And what are they engaged in? Mundane welfare work. And they also got the nickname from, what was his name? The guru of Rasananda Prabhu. Yeah.
Oh, Bhakti Rup Siddhanta.
Yeah, Bhakti Sri Rup Siddhanti Maharaj, when he was just a brahmachari. And they went preaching in Dhaka, in Bangladesh. And he upset the audience. And he started saying, Murgi mission. And also it was written in articles by our Prabhupada for some of the magazines at that time, when Prabhupada was staying in Mathura. They also poked at the Ramakrishna Mission and called it Murgi Mission. You know what that means?
Not good.
Means chicken mission. Because they're not even vegetarian, they're eating chicken, So, yeah, they attacked. So there are many instances, especially in India, where these Mayavadi sannyasis descend to the material platform again. But a person who is fully in Krishna consciousness, now we get the word fully again. How many times have we heard that? Full Krishna consciousness, fully in Krishna consciousness. So a person who is fully in Krishna consciousness will never return to any sort of material platform. However alluring and attracting they may be, he always knows that no material welfare activities can compare to the spiritual activity of Krishna consciousness.
Is that the one, would that be validated by the verse, Yomam Pashati Savatra, the one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me I am never lost? Is that the way this is referring to, or is it referring to Vrindavan?
In what context?
Full Krishna consciousness.
Oh, the term full Krishna consciousness. Yeah. Realized. Somebody who's realized on a high level of Uttama Bhakti. That means full Krishna consciousness. I would say that it begins in the stage of Ruchi, but really matures in the stage of Asakti. But when they reach the stage of Bhav, that's absolute. Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma Prema Suryamsu Samyabhak, is actually a transcendental phenomenon which enters into the heart of that sadhak and now illuminates his heart with various tastes. Ruchi. Ruchi vis chitta mashrinya. The heart becomes melted. Mashrinya. Ruchi vis chitta mashrinya. Kridaso bhava uchite. That's the definition verse of bhav. So, full Krishna consciousness, it means someone who's always thinking of Krishna, right? 24 hours a day. That's full Krishna consciousness. And that's Uttama Bhakti, because the definition, as we'll be studying more and more, the definition is that, what? Anukul yena Krishna anushilana. And anu has different meanings in this context. Shilanam also. Shilanam means a cultivation, constant flowing cultivation. Like when you pour oil and there's no break, just a stream, solid stream. So all those explanations are in that verse of Rupa Goswami, and we'll take the time to study that. It will be very beneficial. We'll study it in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu, and then we'll also read the small little book, Bhakti Tattva Viveka by Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, which really brings it all home in such a clear way. So now he goes on and he says, the mystic perfections achieved by actually successful yogis, there are 8 in number. Anima Siddhi refers to the power by which one can become so small that he can enter into a stone. Now I remember reading the Nectar Devotion when we were new devotees, right? And we were thinking, Prabhupada, he has all these mystic perfections. But it's true. Huh? Actually successful yogis. And who's the ultimate actually successful yogi? The Mahabhagavat, pure Vaishnava. He's the ultimate successful yogi. Bhakti yogi.
Yoginam api sarvesham.
Yes, yoginam api sarvesham. Madgata antaratmana. Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam same yuktatamo mataha. He is the topmost and most intimately united with me. But nevertheless, when we would read these, we'd be thinking, wow, because we never heard this before, that through mystic yoga, you can attain this perfection, which is a material perfection, actually, of, yes, anima siddhi, anima, the power by which one can become so small that he can enter into a stone. You see this in the movies. You see, you know. Then, yes, modern scientific improvements, they also enable us to enter into stone because they provide for excavating so many subways, penetrating the hills, etc. So anima siddhi, the mystic perfection of trying to enter into stone, has also been achieved by material science. It's like in Europe, they have that gigantic machine. Have you ever seen that? For boring through the mountain ranges and, you know.
Look at that underground in London.
Yeah.
How deep you go to get to the
And
subway.
what to speak of under the ocean.
Yes, under
Or
the
the channel,
Right.
you know. So anima siddhi, the mystic perfection of trying to enter into stone, has also been achieved by material science. Similarly, all of the yoga siddhis or perfections are material arts. For example, in one yoga siddhi, there is development of the power to become so light that one can float in the air or on water. That is also being performed by modern scientists. They are flying in the air, they are floating on the surface of the water, and they are traveling under the water. So after comparing all these mystic yoga siddhis to materialistic perfections, we find that the materialistic scientists try for the same perfections. So actually there is no difference between mystic perfection and materialistic perfection. A German scholar You know this story? A German scholar once said that the so-called yoga perfections had already been achieved by the modern scientists. And so he was not concerned with them. He intelligently went to India to learn how he could understand his eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord by means of bhakti yoga, devotional service. Of course, in the categories of mystic perfection, there are certain processes which the material scientists have not yet been able to develop. For instance, a mystic yogi can enter into the sun planet simply by using the rays of the sunshine. This perfection is called laghima. Similarly, a yogi can touch the moon with his finger. Though the modern astronauts go to the moon with the help of spaceships, at least they say they went, they undergo many difficulties. Whereas a person with mystic perfection can extend his hand and touch the moon with his finger. This siddhi is called prapti, or acquisition. We were told that this, what's his name? Siddha Baba, what? Sai Baba, yes.
Sai Baba.
That he had a little bit of that, and he would use it to impress people.
He could produce a little gold, I heard.
Or ashes, or whatever, right? So with this prapti siddhi, not only can the perfect mystic yogi touch the moon planet, but he can extend his hand anywhere and take whatever he likes. He may be sitting thousands of miles away from a certain place, and if he likes, he can take fruit from a garden there. This is prapti siddhi. 2-3. The modern scientists have manufactured nuclear weapons with which they can destroy an insignificant part of this planet. But by the yoga siddhi known as ishita, one can create and destroy an entire planet simply at will. Who did that? I remember Bhakti Swarup Sridhar Maharaj was telling about the competition between Vishishta, yes, and Vishwamitra Muni. Right. Yes, and they were doing amazing things on that level. So another perfection is called Vasita, and by this perfection one can bring anyone under his control. This is a kind of hypnotism which is almost irresistible. Sometimes it is found that a yogi who may have attained a little perfection in the Vashita, mystic power, he comes out among the people and speaks all sorts of nonsense, controls their minds, exploits them, takes their money, and then goes away. There is another mystic perfection which is known as prakamya, and here in parentheses, magic. By this prakamya power, one can achieve anything he likes. For example, one can make water enter into his eye, and then again come out from within the eye. Simply by his will, he can perform such wonderful activities. The highest perfection of mystic power is called Kama Vashayita. This is also magic, but whereas the Prakamya power acts to create wonderful effects within the scope of nature, Kama Vashayita permits one to contradict nature. In other words, to do the impossible. Of course, one can derive great amounts of temporary happiness by achieving such yogic, materialistic perfections, right? Who contradicted nature by his yogic power? Yes. What did he do?
Turned it backwards.
He changed karma.
Yes.
He made it that if you do something good, you get a bad reaction. If you do something bad, you get a good reaction. He reversed karma.
Yes. So I'm just ending now. Foolishly, people who are enamored of the glimmer of modern materialistic advancement, they are thinking that the Krishna consciousness movement is for less intelligent men. Oh, I am better off being busy with my material comforts, maintaining a nice apartment, family, and sex life. These people do not know that at any moment they can be kicked out of their material situation. And due to ignorance, they do not know that real life is eternal. The temporary comforts of the body are not the goal of life, And it is due only to darkest ignorance that people become enamored of the glimmering advancement of material comforts. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has therefore said that the advancement of material knowledge renders a person more foolish because it causes one to forget his real identity by its glimmer. This is doom for him because this human form of life is meant for getting out of material contamination. And by the advancement of material knowledge, people are becoming more and more entangled in material existence. They have no hope in being liberated from this catastrophe. So there's more. But just see how Srila Prabhupada, for a person that's never heard these kind of things before, like us, and then when we open up this and we see this truth so lucidly, so simply being explained, it's mind-blowing. And especially so many years later, we're reading Srila Prabhupada's, early translations and purports, and it's just completely amazing. We keep on saying this over these last few weeks, again and again, how Srila Prabhupada was completely empowered for that particular service. And practically, none can compare. He had a particular mission, and he was empowered exactly to do that. So that's why his books are so powerful, and they're being distributed and received by people by the millions all over the world and making Krishna Bhaktas. So it took a long time, which I usually won't do, but today's special day.
Okay, Hare Krishna, Jai.
Vancha kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhubhe vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. You want to leave?